Have you ever wondered what the role of the neurotransmitter dopamine is in sleep? Hello, my successful and healthy earthlings. Mihaela Ragushia, naturopath and founder of the Natural Health Podcast. In this episode today, I'm going to talk about sleep cycles, the one-on-one on sleep. I'm going to talk about the neurotransmitter dopamine and the link to sleep. At the end, I'm going to give you 3 tips to help you sleep better. At the end of this episode, I'm also going to give you an opportunity to join the Natural Health newsletter, where bonuses and specials are sent straight into inbox every Friday. And you can do that by clicking below to join a Natural Health newsletter. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell notification button to support the podcast. Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, where we bring awareness for sustainable health in the business hustle space. Natural Health Podcast is perfect for high-performing, business-minded individuals who want to work with their biochemistry to achieve success and optimal health. It's Mondays with Mihaela. That's right, me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I absolutely love, and appreciate your support. On Mondays, I'm here to provide you with simple, savvy, and sustainable health hacks to optimize your health. And in today's episode, I'm talking about sleep. You know how much I love my sleep. Not only that, you know how much I love talking about sleep. So today's episode is no different. Let's start off with talking about the sleep cycle 101. I've done a number of podcast episodes about sleep, but I thought I will touch base upon these topics about, let's get to know the sleep cycles a bit better before we talk about the role of dopamine, because it will allow us to understand the role of dopamine in sleep. So one of the things is NRM, which is non-rapid eye movement sleep. It's composed of 3 stages. The higher the stage of NREM sleep, the harder it is to wake a person up, right? So you have stage 1, which is also known as N1. This stage is essentially the dosing off stage. So when you hit the pillow, when you're about to fall asleep, that is stage 1, and it normally lasts about 1 to 5 minutes. And then we follow on to non-REM sleep 2. N2, which is a stage 2. The body enters a more subdued state, including a drop in temperature occurs when you're in this state. Your muscles relax more, you slow down your breathing, and your heart rate also slows down a little bit. At the same time, the brain waves show a new pattern of eye movement, and eye movement actually stops, right? The brain activity overall slows down. Essentially, in this stage, most things slow down, right? And there are short bursts of activity that actually help resist being woken up by external stimulus. It can last from 10 to 25 minutes during the first cycle, and each N2, which is non-rapid eye movement sleep stage 2, can become longer during the night. And typically a person spends about half their sleep in this stage. So this is a huge stage which a lot of us stay in, right? Then we've got stage 3, N3, and this is known as deep sleep. We all hear about you need to be in deep sleep for a certain amount of time. And it is the harder to wake someone up if they are in this phase, where your muscle tone, your breathing, your pulse rate decrease in this stage also, as the body relaxes even further, because we need to be in a really relaxed state to sleep. So this stage 3 is where we're actually really dozed off. And the brain activity during this period has an identified pattern as we know as delta waves. So delta waves are evident in this stage. Experts believe that this stage is critical to restorative sleep, allowing the body to recover and grow and repair the way it's supposed to be. Also assist with the immune system and so forth. So a lot of things occur with memory, creativity, and so many things occur during this stage. We spend the most time in deep sleep during the first half of the night. And this is why I'm always talking about how important the first half of the night is. So during the earlier sleep cycles, this stage 3 commonly lasts for about 20 to 40 minutes. This also depends on the individual, but approximately 20 to 40 minutes. And as you continue to sleep, this stage gets shorter, right? And more time gets spent in REM sleep instead, which we'll talk about. So this is what happens throughout the night. The next stage what we're talking about is REM sleep, right? So we've spoken about stage 1, 2, 3, which is deep sleep, and now we're going to REM sleep. brain activity picks up here. So totally different to in REM. Nearing levels seen as when you're awake. So your brain is as active as it could be when you're awake. At the same time, your body experiences atonia, which means you have temporary paralysis of the muscles with two exceptions, which is your eyes and the muscles that control your breathing. So this is why you may see the eye movement, right? That even though your eyes might be closed, they may be moving really, really quickly, and that's why it gets its name from. REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. It's believed to be essential to cognitive function, memory, learning, and creativity. REM sleep is also known for the most vivid dreams. So when you have those vivid dreams, you've had them in REM sleep most likely. And it's explained also by the activity of your brain because, like I mentioned at the start, the activity of the brain gets picked up at this stage. Dreams can occur in any sleep stage, but they are less common and intense in REM period. So that's why you're most likely going to remember and have the sleeps in REM. So how humans' brain regulates sleep remains a puzzle, right? How sleep observes human dreaming, rapid eye movement especially is puzzling. So there's been so much research and wanting to know how do individuals move from this non-REM sleep into REM sleep. And this is exactly where dopamine comes into place. And this is where I wanted to talk about dopamine. And one of the key things is a study I found. So what I want to talk about now is dopamine and the sleep link. There's so many studies out there how dopamine can inhibit sleep due to drugs and so forth, and dopamine activity and being overactivated. But there's an interesting study that I found, right? Which talks about dopamine helping sleep. Let's go into it and let's break it down a little bit. So what I want to tell you is there's this paper that I found is available in Science 2022, and it's rapid eye movement sleep is initiated by basolateral amygdala dopamine signaling in mice. And I'll click the link. You'll be able to click the link to see this publication. So prior research has shown that people move between two types of sleep as they doze, right? Which is what I spoke about at the start, the non-rapid eye movement and rapid eye movement, right? But what has not been clear is the mechanisms involved in switching between the two types of sleep, right? So how does that happen and what occurs? And this is where this study came out of, right? So a team of researchers from the University of Toshukuba in Japan and Peking University School of Life Science in China has found an association between the production of dopamine in the basolateral amygdala and the initiation of REM sleep, right? So this is what I'm talking about. This is absolutely amazing. This got released this year in the Science journal. In their paper published in the Journal of Science, the researchers described the use of optogenetic manipulation in mice to better understand what happens in the brain during sleep cycles. So essentially they used mice to see what actually happens. What happens when they move from non-rapid eye movement sleep to REM sleep? What happens? How is it initiated? Or how does it change? They found that production of dopamine in that specific region of the brain increases just before the brain moves into REM sleep. Okay, so what does that mean? So moving from NREM sleep to REM sleep, which is absolutely key for your creativity, for your cognitive function and so forth, for those amazing dreams, there is a surge of dopamine just before you move into that sleep. There's also a surge of brain activity. There's a surge of so many things happening. This part is so interesting and it's a huge finding, right? A similar change did not occur during non-REM cycles. So moving from non-REM 1, 2, 3, there was no increase of dopamine there. But there was an increase of dopamine from moving from non-REM to REM sleep. This suggested that the researchers that increases in dopamine levels were associated with pushing the brain to move to REM state, right? This is mind-blowing. If you understand the whole stages of sleep and things and so forth, and how important REM sleep is for your overall health, you'll understand how mind-blowing this research is. So the researchers went, you know what, to test this, they artificially stimulated the production of dopamine in the same region while the mice were in a non-REM state, and found by doing so, they pushed the brain into REM state. So they've proven their hypothesis right, okay? So these results show a critical role of dopamine signaling in the BLA in initiating REM sleep and provide a neuronal basis for sleep cycle generation. So these scientists are absolutely excited. I'm excited to find out a different role dopamine, the neurotransmitter dopamine, may have in sleep, moving from non-rapid eye movement sleep to rapid eye movement sleep. So some individuals may actually not be getting any REM sleep or minimal REM sleep. And is that due to the dopamine? Is that due to the signaling? Why is that happening? And this is what I love researching and finding out, so I'm able to share it with you, right? So let's look at 3 tips to help you sleep better. And I'm going to be simple and straightforward with these. Number 1 is make sure that you have healthy neurotransmitter production. Okay, because dopamine is a neurotransmitter. And if you're unable to have the building blocks for dopamine to occur, you may not be able to move into REM sleep as smooth as someone who has healthy neurotransmitter production. So this is absolutely key, finding out the core, the building blocks of dopamine and ensuring that you have them, but also ensuring that you have a healthy production of dopamine and other neurotransmitters, that it's not too much or too little, that it's a balance. So that's what number 2 is balance your neurotransmitters. So balancing your neurotransmitters, you can work with a health professional or figure out where your neurotransmitters are at now. Do you have too much dopamine, too little dopamine? What does your genetics say, right? So you can figure out where the dopamine is at for you. Number 3 is, I'm always talking about this one, and that is to reduce your stress. That's right, to reduce your stress, because we know how much stress impacts your sleep and how much it can impact neurotransmitter production and how much it can impact overall health, right? So there you have it. I shared an amazing research study with you that got released in 2022 by the Journal of Science by some amazing researchers to find out what that dopamine increases as you move from non-REM to REM sleep, which is absolutely key for optimal sleep and optimal health. So there you have it. If you know someone who would love this research, share it with them. Share the Natural Health Podcast. If you want to know more about the Natural Health Podcast, join the Natural Health Podcast newsletter by clicking below. On Fridays, special bonuses sent straight into your inbox to be part of our health and success oriented community. There you have it. Do what you do best. Love, like, share the Natural Health Podcast. And remember, the missing link between failure and success is your health. Content and information provided here is the opinion of Mahela Raguse and is for information purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. It is not intended to provide medical advice or take the place of medical advice or any current treatment you're undertaking. Consult your own medical professionals for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the Natural Health Podcast. It is advised that you consult your doctor or healthcare professional in relation to any health concerns you may be having. Mahela Raguse does not take responsibility for any health consequences which occur from a person listening, viewing, or reading this content. Under no circumstances shall the Natural Podcast, Mahela Raguse, any guest or contributors to the Natural Podcast, or any employees, associates, or affiliates of Mahela Raguse be responsible for damages arising from the information provided on the Natural Podcast. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical conditions in either yourself or others. Please note, if you're taking prescription, do not stop your medication or start a new protocol, including but not limited to supplements, diet, lifestyle changes without consulting a doctor or healthcare professional. If you or any person has a medical concern, you should consult with your healthcare provider or seek other professional medical advice. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something that you have read or heard on the Natural Podcast or in any linked materials. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. Neither Mahela Raguse nor the publisher of this content takes responsibility for the possible health consequences of any person or persons reading or listening or following the information in the educational content.